Welcome back, guys. I've returned back from my travels down in Australia. I was down in Sydney for a little more than a week, about a week and a half. And I've got to say, some of the friendliest people, some of the best food I've had from around the world. I really want to go back now that it's cool here in California in December. So I don't know, maybe a Christmas visit in the future, maybe a little bit longer, we'll see. For now, though, we got to get back on the MK sort of pre-fabrication or pre-refresh, I guess, before the kit arrives, which is going to be any day now. It's just about ready to ship, and I'll have a little bit more information on that at the end of the video. But today what we need to do is we're going to focus on the back corners, and we're going to put the rear hubs together. So over on the bench here, I've got one hub assembly already done and then one left to do. This is pretty easy. I should say it's easy if you have a press. If not, any shop with a press can do this job in probably a half hour to an hour, depending on how they book time. I would highly recommend, if you do take it to a shop, do all the hard work yourself and get the parts cleaned up and prepped so that it makes their job easier and in turn costs you less money because they don't have to fight things. So what we have is we have our rear upright. It's nicely refinished. This is a billet hub from Goodwin Racing. In fact, all the brake parts I've purchased for this kit have come from Goodwin Racing. I can't remember if I said it was Goodwin or Flying Miata previously, but in case, to make a correction, these are all from Goodwin. All the brake components, the Little Big brake kit, all that stuff, all came from Goodwin Racing. This isn't sponsored, so I will tell you how everything went once it's all on the car and everything's bedded in. But I have used parts from them before, and they do make a lot of good stuff. And I should say that their shipping was extremely quick. So more on them later in a future video for an actual review. But for the rest of the parts, so we have our upright, we have our hub. This is an adapter to adapt normal brakes to a sport brake rotor. Now I already have the calipers for the rear, and I wanted to upgrade to the 11-inch rotors, which are over on the rack there. So this allows me to use that kind of stock caliper on a sport rotor so I don't have to buy new parts. And then of course we have a new bearing, a new seal for the rear of the hub, and a new circlip. All right, looking at the parts themselves, I'm going to give you the quick and dirty of the install. Again, if you have a press, doing this yourself is super easy, and there is an order of operation and a couple things you have to be careful for. So, of course, you have our bearing, and the first step is actually to press the bearing inside the knuckle. To make this a little bit easier, you can coat the outside of the bearing with just a light coat of oil, or down here inside the barrel, just put a little oil in there just to help ease the two together. And when you do that, you want to press from this outside. So I have just this bearing press adapter, and it fits perfectly on the outer diameter. And the reason you do that is since you're pushing this sleeve in, you want to make sure that all your pressure is on that sleeve. If you're pushing on the inside in this step, you can damage it and you can actually force it out. I don't know anyone who would have done that. So you just want to be careful, push from the outside, and then once this sleeve fits, or once this bearing fits all the way down in there, if you can see from the light here, there is a little lip on the inside, and that's where this circlip goes in. You'll pinch these together, pop that circlip in, and all this does is prevent that bearing from coming back out on its own. After that, what you need to do is we're going to press the hub into the bearing. And this is one of those things that you got to be careful about, because so before we supported the outside of the bearing. Well, this time we want to use another bearing adapter to support the inside, because what we're going to be doing is, since this bearing will be seated in here, we're going to support the back side of the bearing with this spacer. So just imagine that this whole assembly is in the hub. And then we go to push this guy in, we're going to push it down from the top or from this side. And we're going to push this whole guy into the bearing while supporting the back side of the bearing. And that ensures that you're not pushing these inside bearing races out of the back of the bearing, because that's what's going to happen. Some guy told me that. So once that's done, you're going to flip the whole assembly over. And the very last step is pushing the seal into place. And if you have a seal tool or anything like that that's wide enough, you could just tap it down, it's fine. Or you could just lightly tap with a hammer and drift around the outside and just walk the seal in. Just be careful. You can bend these, but otherwise, yeah, it's just a nice, easy job to get that seal in place. So now that we're familiar with all the steps, let's go over to the press and we'll do those one at a time. Oh. All right, there you have it. The last step was getting that seal in. Like I said, this is all a fairly easy job if you have a press. It's just being careful with the inner and outer bearing shells and supporting them properly. But once you've done that, you have a perfectly good, healthy bearing. So we'll just set these guys on here for now. And then last step is I'm just going to loosely put this caliper adapter in place. I don't know the torque specs offhand, and I don't want to torque it improperly, but I'm also going to paint this anodized aluminum black to match everything else that's back here, because the blue will just stand out on the car a little too much. Not that anyone's really going to see this part. It's just more of an aesthetic choice than anything. And now that that's in place, we will call this done. Now, one note I wanted to make, and a question I had for anybody with experience, is these wheel bolts or wheel nuts that I've got. These are forged aluminum, and it's like a 70-75 aluminum that's been anodized. They look really nice. I, however, have never run aluminum lug nuts. Of course, it's going on an extended ARP steel stud. So I would expect some bimetallic corrosion over time. So you would have to put anti-seize in these threads. But has anybody run these nuts, or has anyone run a forged aluminum wheel nut? Basically, my concern is, besides the bimetallic corrosion I mentioned before, is if they will loosen up over time, or if they work harden and will crack or fatigue with lots of use. I mean, this is going on a street track car, so wheels and tires will be swapped quite a bit. So is that going to work harden the aluminum even more and cause it to fatigue, crack, have some kind of a catastrophic failure? I mean, granted, it's not holding up a Cadillac, but the car is going on, even though light will be driven hard. So that's my only concern. All the other lugs, or I should say all the other wheel nuts on the other cars are steel. This is my first foray into forged aluminum, so I'm just curious for any feedback you guys have. So that's it for the rear hubs for now. I don't want to put the brake discs on just yet. I'll wait to do the calipers and the rotors at the same time. Not that that's a particularly hard job. They just slide on, the calipers bolt on with a couple of bolts, nothing doing. So not really much of an install job there. But these are now ready to go on the kit when it arrives. Speaking of the kit, so Neil reached out to me and said basically they're just waiting on literally a couple of things to toss in the box before it ships over. I don't know if I mentioned about the shipping cost previously. I will include the total cost of the car, the kit, everything that I'm doing, plus the cost of shipping, import taxes, duties, etc. At the end of the full build series, so you have sort of an idea of what I paid for my kit, but I'll also include some base prices for just a basic kit as well, because that's going to be significantly cheaper than what I've done. Just for instance, the motor alone, the engine alone that's being built by Mike Kojima at Moto IQ Garage costs more than an entire kit can be put together, shipped, arrived, taxes paid, etc., using just a base MX-5 as a donor, or a base Miata as a donor. So just to give you a little bit of a hint of the cost, I really have spared no expense for this car because I wanted to make it something special. So yeah, the shipping on the kit we've discovered is actually cheaper to do by plane, to fly the box to a local port and then for me to pick it up, than it is to ship the crate from the UK to Oakland via boat. There's a few reasons for that now. There's a huge snafu and a backup through the Panama Canal, but that's probably the biggest contributor to the price difference. Previously, boat was by far cheaper, and I believe I shipped the GBS kit by boat to the East Coast and then by rail from there. So shipping everything by plane and then having it quite literally almost overnight is going to be something special. So it's kind of hurry up and wait at the moment, but the kit should be arriving any day now. Something I mentioned earlier was that I'm using all these parts from Goodwin Racing, or I've mentioned in other videos that I'm using parts from different manufacturers, etc. So far to date, really everything you've seen on channel has been hashtag not sponsored. I don't do any money deals. I don't take any form of like payment for reviews or anything like that. Everything, every car, every part, every piece has been purchased out of pocket with my own money. And I think that allows me to be frank with the reviews that I've given. I'm not beholden by an edit. I'm not beholden by any kind of other opinions. This is just my opinion, my experience with everything that I've purchased. Generally, I've had fantastic experiences working with the companies that I have, with the parts that I have, and I try to shout out people who have not necessarily gone above and beyond, but just fulfilled their obligations and duties for like just good customer service. Fab 9 is a great example of that. I worked with them on parts for the Duratec build. I worked with them for the rebuilds, and when they shipped the wrong rods, they were quick to remedy those mistakes, and they were fantastic to work with over the phone. They responded quickly. So things like that, I just want to be really honest about, so that you don't think that there's, a paid review or anything like that. It's untoward. No, everything is out of my pocket. All my opinions and experiences are my own, and I'm just sharing them with you as I experience them, really. A lot of these videos go live within a week of me shooting them. There are a few rare examples where I've done things well ahead of time, but for the most part, everything you see is almost real time. So when I'm having, a good time or a bad time, it's all generally happening at the moment or close to the moment you see. There are a handful of companies I would still love to do business with. It doesn't have to be, again, I'm not asking for sponsorship or anything like that, sponsored parts, because I want to be able to give a full and honest review. And I'm not going to mention names yet, but there's more coming down the pipe. I just really appreciate everyone that I've had to work with currently, everything that I've worked with in the past, and hopefully we'll continue to have good relationships in the future. That being said, the MK kit is coming. I got to get things ready. Sooner than later, we'll be building a yellow car in this garage. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.